Since the Florida primary began, we've been trying to get Governor Rick Scott as our guest. We weren't able to work it out with his schedule and our schedule, but I had told Scotty on our team, listen, this guy has a great story. There's a lot going on. Florida's the most important state in the upcoming election. If at any point we can work out our schedules that you can get him on, I want to have him on the show. Today was the first day we were able to do that, and I'm glad for it. Governor Rick Scott, Governor of the state of Florida. Governor?
Good morning. When are you moving to Florida? We have great beaches.
You would. I love Florida. You would have no reason to know this, but my career has sort of trailed yours. When I was a young lawyer a baby lawyer in the mid 1990s, I was at a firm called Jenkins and Gilchrist that was a healthcare firm.
Oh, yeah.
With Ann James and a lot of folks that had worked with you at HCA and Columbia. I wasn't doing much healthcare law, but those guys, you were sort of the God man for them. So I have followed your career from a distance since those days. I never expected to see you go from venture capital to politics, and that to first elected office, governor of the great state of Florida. That's pretty impressive.
And win.
And win.
Nobody thought I could win. But you know what? The country, the state of Florida, probably every state, we need jobs. We need business people to go out there, run for office. You don't have to be a business person, but go out there and run for office and run on the free darn market. That's how we create jobs. Figure out how do we help businesses hire more people, make them more successful, cut their taxes, reduce their regulation, get rid of these frivolous lawsuits. And guess what? More businesses will hire people.
Absolutely. Governor Rick Scott of Florida, one of the things of your administration, you turned down $2.4 billion in stimulus money from the Obama administration for light rail, which I'm not a big fan of. The money ended up going to California. Why turn down federal funds? We're looking at a new budget from the administration that seems to hand money to his friends. Why'd you turn down $2.5 billion?
Well, let's think about it. There's nothing free. There's no free lunch. So what they wanted to do is give us $2.5 billion and buy build a high speed. I think about this high speed rail going 84 miles total miles, and have a whole bunch of stops. It was never going to be high speed. We didn't need it, and Floridians were going to have to spend probably $1 billion plus to build it and lose money every year. Why would we do that? Look at California. I think their project out there, their so-called high-speed project, was supposed to cost $30-some billion, and now it's $100 billion. Now, everybody thinks these numbers are irrelevant. Our whole budget, right, is our general revenue is $23 billion in Florida. Our whole budget is $69, but $1 billion increase in taxes, that's a lot of darn money for people for something we don't need.
Particularly at a time, and we're going to talk about the Florida primary in a moment, but the most watched of the primaries, I think, so far was the Florida primary, and one of the big issues was the mortgage crisis there, and you folks have been hit harder than almost any other state in the country. What is your administration doing differently than what the Obama administration is doing to deal with that crisis, and a lot of folks losing their homes, a lot of folks scratching to stay in them?
The only real solution is to create jobs. So in our state, when I came into office, we had lost jobs for 4 straight years. We had lost people 3 years ago. So I cut my first session, which is last year, I cut property taxes, I cut business taxes, I got rid of teacher tenure. We expanded charter schools, we started merit pay for teachers, we drug screen welfare recipients. I'm working on cutting 1,000 regulations. Every agency head that I put into place says, you know what my first job is? Help businesses in Florida get more jobs. And guess what? It's worked. Our unemployment's dropped faster than any state but one, from 12 to 9.9, 141,500 private sector jobs. And guess what? As these people get jobs, they buy houses. We had an 8% increase last year in home sales. There's just an individual in my office earlier. He's building homes down in the Lakewood Ranch, which is Sarasota area. He's sold last year 365 homes. Villages, which you've seen their probably ads, their nationwide ads, they sold 2,600 homes. So if you have the right price points, you're doing really well in Florida. It works. All this stuff, it's so basic. Make it so business people are successful, and they'll hire people.
You know, one of the things you mentioned, Governor Rick Scott of Florida, was drug testing for welfare recipients. You folks were discussing that. A week before you folks proposed it, they proposed it in Louisiana, and it didn't pass. And then a week later, I got an email from somebody in Louisiana that was following your proposal, and it did. Folks will kick back on that. Does it make a real difference?
Well, let's think about it. Here's the welfare money is money that was supposed to go for the benefit of a child. All right. So that was the basis for it. So he said you can give it to another parent, you can give it to a grandparent or a guardian, but you're not going to give it to somebody that's using drugs. So we passed it, we implemented it. They sued over it. The ACLU sued over it. It's right now it's been abated until it goes to get appealed. The district court stopped it, but it works. I mean, you think about it, the money is supposed to be for the benefit of a child. That's the rationale for this. Why would you ever give it to somebody using drugs?
I cannot grasp the argument against it. You know, everybody's looking at Florida, and most folks recognize that the Republicans cannot take back the White House unless Republicans win the state of Florida. What's changed since 2008 to make it more likely that Republicans win Florida?
I think there's now a heated conversation in Florida about what is the role of government, what's the size of government, and now, well, here's what's changed in Florida. People in Florida, we realize that Obamacare is a disaster. It's a disaster for patients. It's going to ration their care. It's a disaster for taxpayers. We can't afford it. It's a disaster for building businesses because businesses can't afford it. So guess what they're going to do? They're either going to not hire people or they're going to move jobs out of this country. So step one, Obamacare passed, which is a big problem. Second, I'll tell you something right now that's gone on. The Catholic bishops in Florida are infuriated over being told what type of health plan they have to cover, or the things that they have to cover that's against their religion, their doctrine. So that's going to have an impact. Jobs are coming back, and they know jobs are coming back in Florida, not because what the federal government is doing, because they know the federal government keeps wanting to raise taxes, and we have unbelievable regulation. They're not doing anything to help us recruit companies from outside America. I mean, I say this. Tell me why you would come to America if we have the second highest corporate tax rates in the world, if we have more regulation than the rest of the world, and we've got trillion-dollar deficits forever and ever that we know we can't pay. So people are acting logically. They're saying, gosh, I'll go do business someplace else.
Right. In
Florida, we're doing the right things, but the federal government needs to do a better job.
The governor of the great state of Florida, Rick Scott, thanks for being with us.
All right, have a great day.
We're counting on you in November. You are the strategy to win back the White House. More Michael Berry Show coming up.
Think for 1 second.
The Michael Berry Show.
Think.